out. So, government shutdown. Tell me about that. How does that affect loans? Like, what are we looking at?
That's a great question. I think people have asked us recently just, what's going to happen, especially when it comes to if you're a home buyer, if you're selling your home right now, if you're a realtor, a lender, and everybody's kind of has that same concern of if there's a government shutdown, how does that impact my loan? How does that impact my buying situation or selling situation? And general answer is it probably not going to. It's probably not going to have much impact at all. But there are some certain situations where you really could see an impact. And I think it's something that we should kind of dive into specifically, talk about where that impact might be.
Okay, so certain situations that it might impact you. We can certainly get into that. Are there specific loans that it would affect more than others?
Absolutely.
Okay.
USDA loans, since it's a government loan, that could have the most possible outcome for, having issues. Like point blank. For USDA loans right now, I would be very cautious for anyone starting a USDA loan, or if you're in the process of a USDA loan, I'd also be very cautious about, potential outcomes.
So, what would your recommendation be if you're already in the process of a USDA, or you're pre-approved and you're home shopping? Would you recommend, hey, just let's put this thing on pause, or what would you suggest doing?
It's a great question. I mean, it's got to be up to the individual to see, what their overall circumstances on buying or selling a home. I wouldn't necessarily immediately stop the purchasing process or the selling process, but I would just be aware that the shutdown could impact you, especially when it comes to the end of the process. If you're trying to get approved for the home and you need a conditional commitment from USDA, that may not happen if there's a shutdown ongoing at that point. Now, could it could shut down in just a couple of days and everything's back to normal? Certainly. But it's something I think people should be careful and considerate of at this point.
Yeah. So set the expectation that, we'll continue moving forward, but maybe towards the end we should expect some delays.
Absolutely.
If things
Absolutely. Yeah, I think all parties that are in the buying or selling process right now just really have to keep in mind that a delay could be very possible on a USDA loan, because you got to make sure that USDA signs off at the end and issues a commitment to lend once you get closed. So you could get clear to close on your loan, everything could go perfect the whole way through, but at the very end, if you don't have that commitment from USDA, the loan won't physically close.
Gotcha. Okay. So why is USDA impacted more than other loans? What is it about the USDA?
More so, it's just that government loan where, it's just such a great thing for first-time home buyers. It's an awesome program, but there's a little bit more scrutiny on USDA than there is on, say, like a conventional loan or even FHA or VA. So if you're doing a 100% financing loan like USDA, there may be a couple more hoops to kind of jump through. So it's not just that you're doing a loan with, a lender like Alcova, for example. You're also kind of getting approved through USDA. And if USDA is closed or backed up, that's where you could start to see some issues.
Okay. So outside of USDA, if somebody is pre-qualified and shopping with a different type of loan, what are some other circumstances, like you mentioned, that might still be affected?
Overall, I'm not really seeing a lot of things that are going to impact everybody, but there's some certain situations where someone could be impacted. Government employees, I mean, that's a huge one. If you are a government employee and you're on a furlough, well, that could create some, potential challenges for you if you're trying to buy or sell a home. On the flip side of that, if you were, for example, buying a home that needed flood insurance, well, what if FEMA's impacted by this as well? That could be something that you really should consider if you're buying a home that needs flood insurance. On the other hand, let's say you're a self-employed person and we need to order tax transcripts at the end of your loan process. If we can't get tax transcripts, again, that could be an issue that comes up late in the process and could throw a curveball into the home buying process. So we just recommend for everyone to communicate with your lender, with your real estate agent, and just make sure everyone's kind of on the same page that, hey, there may be some situations here that are kind of out of our control, and we all have to work together and communicate to make sure this loan gets closed and that everyone's happy at the end.
So agents need to be talking to their buyers about income, loan types. Buyers need to be talking to the lender about, hey, does this affect me? What should we do?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a full communication across the board. A lot of times, the actual lender involved in it should really be proactive to say, like, hey, these are the types of things we're going to need to look for. No one really wants that call. 3 weeks in, oh, by the way, we should have told you this 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So if you're proactive about it and you kind of look for the things that could potentially cause issues, again, most of the time, we're not really expecting a ton of issues. You do a conventional loan, smooth sailing. You do an FHA loan, should be pretty much smooth sailing. But if you get into the idea of, you know, into the grass or into the weeds, so to speak, of a VA loan where you're a self-employed borrower and you know that you're going to need tax transcripts at the end, you know, what do you do?
Bingo. That was my next question. I know we were talking a little bit before we started the video about self-employment, IRS. Oh, is that something that you could see potentially being a problem?
It could be. It certainly could be. So I would just suggest know that kind of going in.
Yeah.
And if everyone can kind of paint the expectations of, hey, we're going to close this loan in 35 days or 45 days, or it may take a little bit longer this time based on the fact that we just don't know the outcome of the shutdown.
Okay. So big picture, you're sitting across the table from a new buyer right now. What would your advice be to them?
You know, it's all things considered. It's always a challenge to buy a home, for sure. You know, we went through this with COVID. You know, during COVID, and we were so shut down that sometimes I'd be the only person on the road driving my car.
Right.
But we were considered the essential employees.
Yeah.
And driving through 581, there's no one on the road except lenders and real estate agents. So, you know, every loan can be a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, you really need to make sure that you just communicate the process and just know up front that it could be a little harder right now. Does that mean you just abandon your home search and never buy a home? Probably not. I think you should definitely kind of keep your realtor in mind as to, you know, if you want to kind of wait until the government shutdown's ending, or if you want to just approach it with a little bit more caution. Right now could be a great time to buy or sell a home, and the fact that maybe some people do back up a little bit and give you an advantage to find a home and get a great deal on it.
Yeah. So buyers, communicate, talk to your lender, talk about specific issues that you may think you run into. What advice would you have for real estate agents who are helping their buyers kind of navigate this? Anything different that you would tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still goes back to, like you said, with communication more than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, agents I work with, I mean, so many people do a great job of just overly communicating the process. I get a lot of insight from the agents as well of, hey, you know, these people are doing this, that, or the other. And that helps me to kind of know, you know, what their individual circumstances might be.
Yeah.
So I think communicating with the lender, communicating with your buyer, with your seller, it's just so important to kind of establish good expectations.
Yeah.
And once you have those expectations established, you kind of know how to overcome the problems that you might face.
Yeah. So communication and expectations, like.
Yes, sir.
So nothing's changed. It's just maybe we need to focus on what we should be doing anyway.
Absolutely.
Okay. So wrap this up for me a little bit. Just overall, how would you summarize how the shutdown does affect real estate?
It definitely could. I think the perception of the shutdown, you know, could hurt the market a little bit.
Yeah.
Anytime there's uncertainty in the market, it can certainly impact interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
It can certainly impact buyers to make a decision or sellers to make a decision. But if you're buying or selling your home, you know, if you get great advice from your lender or your real estate agent, you know, I think getting the advice up front, just kind of knowing what to expect is the way to go.
Cool. Very good. Well, Will, I appreciate you coming in, making the video.